Ready? You ready, John? The meeting will come to order, please. Thank you. Johanna, read a statement of compliance, please.
The notice requirements of the Open Public Meeting Act for this meeting have been satisfied. A copy of the annual meeting notice was sent to the press of Atlantic City, Star Ledger, posted on the bulletin board in the municipal building, the municipal website, and filed in the office of the municipal clerk. Please turn off all cell phones.
Let's all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Attention, salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would you call the roll, please?
Mayor Becker,
Here.
Commissioner Amadeo,
Here.
Commissioner Blumberg,
He is absent.
The items for discussion, number one is swimming pool construction procedures. And Jim or Scott, would you lead that discussion, please?
So what we're trying to do is address the problems we've had basically with the construction of swimming pools. When they start pumping out groundwater, we've had some issues, one over in Cedar Grove, one over in Jefferson. And we want to try to regulate it. And again, like everything else, there's some really good pool contractors that don't cause a problem, but it's the ones who are not as conscientious that are causing us to take a good look at how to create an ordinance. So under the discussions we had, Commissioner Amadeo and Mr. Dini and Jimmy Galantino, we've come up with a basis of an ordinance. Now, I understand we want to make some amendments or tighten this up a little bit, maybe charge them for the discharge, which I'm open to. I think Frank and Roger can have some input on this, or whoever, Jimmy. But we have the basic framework, and we can supplement this to make it even better. But again, it's all for the protection of the surrounding property owners, their homes, their cars, and also our storm water system, so that they're not dumping out dirty or contaminated water into our bay area. But that's the genesis of this. I think Mr. Dini has some comments. I know he felt there should be some supplements. I know we have the police involved with a permit, 48-hour notice to the police. I originally thought that the permit maybe should come out of the public works people, because they're the ones who give the permits to pump out a pool. This is not pumping out a pool, this is pumping out a hole for a pool to be constructed in. So, and then when they spray their gunite, they have to get a special permit. So, where do we go from here?
You know, there's a lot of basic questions.
Yeah.
So, I'm gonna ask one right now. How many permits are we anticipating?
A lot. We've had more
Jimmy would have the answer.
pool permits
No,
issued.
no, that was not the question. I'm sorry, Commissioner.
Oh.
I meant in the ordinance as drafted, it seemed like there's more than one permit that we're talking about, so I think that we need to distinguish which permit when we're gonna have a discussion. For instance, there's a permit needed to put a pool in the first place. That's already in our construction code, is it not? You already get permits for that. Now, isn't this ordinance supplementing that by saying we need a second permit to do gunite?
Yeah.
Okay, so that permit, in my estimation, should be still in the building office, not any other office.
Correct.
Because that's, the person has to inspect the pool and the gunite and all the rest of it. So I think we want to make clear, number one, that that particular permit gets issued there. Now, it seemed like there was another permit, as I read the ordinance, for discharge.
Correct.
Whether that was discharge for the original gunite process, or whether that was discharge for backfilling. Are they the same or not as it relates to discharge?
The permit we're talking about is called dewatering activity. We currently have discharge permit for pools. This is for the ground area being dug out for a pool. So
Okay.
it's different. Any digging out.
All right, so there's a second permit by this ordinance that's required. One is the original one for the gunite, and then another one is to actually discharge that water into our sanitary sewer system.
Right.
So that we already control for other kinds of groundwater contamination. Do we not,
Exactly.
Frank?
Yes, yeah, we do that for contaminated ground, like an oil tank leak.
And you and the engineer administer that permit?
Actually, the engineer's office does. JJ goes through that. He has the formula for it. Excuse me. And that should be part of discharging groundwater for swimming pools.
Okay, so it seems to me, in this particular ordinance, we just need to say that we need to follow the same regulations that are already in ordinance XYZ, which is the ordinance that you're referring to, the
Yes,
swimming pool ordinance.
Which is 22-7-22, discharge permits.
So when I want to put a pool in, I got to go to the construction office, get my permit, then I have to say, I'm going to do gunite pool, so now I have a whole set of different provisions that it's a supplemental permit that gives a 48-hour notice
Right.
to the police department and to the construction office and to anybody else, the neighbors. Now, so that's a question. Do we notify the neighbors, and if so, how? Or,
Well, I didn't get into that
well,
because
but that's what we need to determine
Yeah, but we
today.
did discuss it.
we did
that-
discuss it.
That the adjoining property owners, just like when we're doing pile driving, have to have notification. Now, you bring out a real good point that I didn't think of in any of the discussions we've had. Because there's probably three methods of installing an in-ground pool. One being gunite, which is sprayed concrete. One's a liner, which doesn't need any of the, it might need the dewatering, but it doesn't need a permit for gunite because it's a steel structure that after they dig and shape the hole, they put a liner in it, and that's one kind. And then naturally, there's a concrete pool that's a formed in place concrete pool where they pour the walls and put what's the seal in the bottom? What's it called? I forget what it's called, but there's three things. So if it's a gunite pool, you would need a separate permit for the process of using gunite, which is the most popular style pool, especially in the shore area.
Okay. So we'll call it for now the gunite supplemental regulation
Yeah.
that goes through the construction office. It has a whole lot of things you have to do. Including in that is a discharge, which is, then they have to go to the engineer's office and work with the water and sewer people for discharge.
Okay, so to continue that conversation, which comes to my mind, we did discuss a moratorium like we have with pile driving, that no gunite pools would be installed from, say, June 15th, because that's when our town's the busiest, to September 15th. That's the issue that we have with the police department. When these gunite trucks come in, they block traffic. They're sitting in the middle of the street because there's no parking spaces. So if we do a moratorium in the summer, then the issue with the discharge, because all it is groundwater to keep the hole in shape, correct? Do we need to discharge into our sewer system?
well, I believe if you put a moratorium from June to September, it will cut out a lot of people complaining about the mold or
Yeah,
whatever.
that's what I'm talking about.
Yes, it will definitely cut that out.
The only thing I was thinking of is if we put, and we made sure our team, meaning Jimmy's team, they would have to hold the bladder at least 6 to 8 inches off the curb, because what's happening now, if the water's coming out and it bleeds out, because that's a filtration system, it goes in both directions. If it's going in the wrong direction of the pitch of the street, we don't get drainage, because they put it up against the curb. So then again, that solves that problem, true?
Yes,
Of water laying there and turning green and people getting upset about mosquitoes and all that stuff.
I think it's the thing that I think about is if they discharge right into our sanitary sewer system, if one little mess up can dump a lot of sand into it, and then we have a problem.
Yes.
So you'd prefer it to be in a stormwater system?
Yeah.
And there's nothing against the current stormwater regulations
Right.
that would prevent
No,
that?
it's just
right?
groundwater.
Just groundwater, you're fine.
Pardon?
It's clean groundwater.
Yeah.
So change it
The
to,
purpose of the bladder is to catch the sand, but it
Right.
sands, we know what happens with sand.
well, we periodically have to clean them out anyway from sand.
No,
Yeah,
no,
but
well,
we don't wanna
storm
get
sewer's one thing,
involved
but
with
not
that.
sanitary.
No.
We
Not the
don't,
sewer, not the sanitary sewer.
we don't wanna
The
put it in the
storm
sanitary sewer system and block that system up.
Here's one question I have for you.
But
If you limit it, and you say you can't do it, say June through September. Now, there's certain months of the year they can't do it, spray gunite, because it's too cold. So now you're giving them, these guys a pretty narrow window.
Right.
Not that now.
February, March, April, May, October, November.
Okay. I mean, we could do it just like demolition, but are we sure?
This is called quality of life, and that's what we're here for. And that's where this ordinance starts. It does not start to help the contractors. It starts to
Help
help
the
the people
neighbors.
who live here. And if I'm telling you, I've got a lifetime experience with construction in other places, and we are here in Margate. We can't keep up with the problems in the neighborhoods, whether it be in the streets, the police. You know it, you've got a house next to you.
I got one.
how many complaints did I get from you, sir?
I got one of the worst
How many
examples in the
complaints?
city. But let me just say this to you, and at Roger's suggestion, we actually are making a new chapter, which we're calling construction, general requirements, because we anticipate that we're gonna address some other issues as well, not just groundwater and gunite spraying, but we'll get to that. But
Okay. All
let's
right.
stick on this. So you want a moratorium?
So,
Well, there's
well-
two commissioners who have to make that decision.
Right.
now.
Well, Roger had.
what I think we've gotten to a good point, that we're still strong on the 48-hour notification to the police department because it involves traffic and it's on the street. They're very seldom off the
Plus,
street.
we need to notify the
We all
inspectors.
agree with covering, so that the spray doesn't go beyond the boundaries of where they're working. And the covering can be as simple as putting up baker scaffolding and hanging a tarp. Am I correct?
Correct.
Okay,
Can you,
so,
Jim, can you or Roger help?
Yeah, well, like how
review
high?
Any wording, because Scott, that's one area where Scott can't craft wording without some help,
yeah.
so.
And the third thing is if we do create the moratorium for installation of gunite pools, because,
Let me add on to that. It's not just gunite pools, it's all pools in backyards, because it's really causing issues with the surrounding neighbors. Because
okay,
you're digging up, whether it's gunite, fiberglass, concrete, whatever, they're going up to the property line to excavate.
yeah,
You got 3 neighbors around you that are really majorly inconvenienced throughout the summer.
all right. So if we do the moratorium, that eliminates the water discharge issue, other than the fact that we put spacing between the curb and the bladder for the discharge into the storm system. So I think by creating the moratorium, it simplifies, and Frank's concern is addressed with filtration of sand into the sanitary.
Overwhelmingly simplifies it. It gets it, so the moratorium, and the way I would solve the problem you're talking about the water going both directions or whatever, is
Yes,
they need a 48-hour notice, and then they can't start until whatever day they gotta start, and the inspector comes down there and inspects and says that they're ready to start. They've set it up properly, they got the covering, they've got this, they've got that.
so we'd have to have that in the amendment to the ordinance, saying that before work commences, it has to be signed off by the city inspector.
Just like a foundation
Like a
permit or
foundation,
anything else.
right, Jim?
Now,
Do you agree with that?
Goes through Jimmy, right? Okay. What do you want to do date-wise in the moratorium?
Excuse me?
What dates?
15th June to September 15th.
June 15th?
That's the same as our pile driving?
Demolition, pile driving, there's no.
Oh, no, I meant demolition, I'm sorry.
I mean, we could do that too.
No,
Well, it's set up to add other ones too, so we'll be thinking about that.
Scott, you okay with this?
Yeah, I love it. It's
Jim,
fun.
Roger, John, everybody?
That's good, you gotta write it.
Well, right, look, I have Roger to lean on. I got Johanna, she helped a lot. We looked at, I must have looked at a dozen towns. We're a leader. I don't think anybody really is
Now,
controlling.
the one thing we are leaving out so that everybody knows, we did make a phone call on Jimmy's recommendation and spoke to one of the pool installers that does strictly the gunite in our area. And we did talk to him, and the moratorium was his suggestion. Am I correct, Scott?
Well, he indicated he liked the idea, because he gets so many complaints and headaches to deal with during the summer, and there's so much pressure. It's just better for these guys if they can say, hey, we
So
can
that's
do
the
it.
installer saying he supported it.
And he's one of the better ones. He's one that we don't really have a problem.
Good.
Again, some installers are great, some are less than great.
If you have a moratorium on all pools, you're not giving one
Right.
process
Yeah, favor
a heads up, you're not favoring anything.
All right, good point.
Any mechanism to waive that? Or what if the guy's bringing a fiberglass pool in? Is that,
Still digging a hole.
okay,
Still blocking the street.
yeah, they're digging that hole.
Still messing with the neighbors.
Above ground.
Chief, you're good with that?
I'm good with that.
Sure,
So
Mayor,
what I'll
you good?
do
I'm good.
is I'll circulate this to you in Word, and we'll work with the words and we'll get her done. Well, we got like 95% of it done, so it's pretty good.
I like the part about keeping the streets clean, because that would immediately make,
Well, that was that big
stop
fight on Cedar Grove, right? Benson, was it?
Yes.
They were right. That street was horrible.
Are we finished discussing this? Anybody have anything else before we move on?
I have a question, it hasn't been talked about, but it was. We had a resident come here and make some suggestions, so I just at least want to cover his suggestions. We've covered them all except for one, as I see it. He talks about noise with a compressor. Is that any particular concern that not aware of it is?
Well, that machine, just like an air compressor, makes noise, so we can't really,
Are the hours controlled already by other ordinances?
yes,
There's a sound noise ordinance that's 10 o'clock till 6 o'clock.
No, I'm talking about construction.
Well, we have construction hours.
Right, that's what I thought.
Yeah, I think it would fall.
7 to 5.
Yeah, it would fall
And
under
then,
construction hours for the most part.
As long as they follow the
8
construction hours. I
8 to
think we're
4
okay.
on Saturday.
But they were talking about the pool heater pump. Now, they were talking about the pool heater pump and the pool filter. He didn't like the sound, he didn't want to hear that sound.
Oh, well, if
It says
Roger
the
approves
compressor
it,
transporter pump truck should be enclosed to limit street noise or a level deemed appropriate by the building department. Most companies limit 8-hour exposure to so many decibels, whatever.
yeah, well,
So, I personally think our ordinance already substantially covers it. If you can't do other kind of construction, you can't do pool construction.
I'm sorry, he had a side conversation with me about that. I went over and met him. And he was concerned about the pool heater and the pool pump.
That's a
making-
whole different thing,
Yeah.
right? But you're okay with the pool hours
Yes.
being the way we are? All right.
Okay.
But I
Covered.
think the broader question you're talking about, though, is compressors in general. That these guys, they don't get their electric hookup from the electric company, and they use a generator, which is very loud, really loud. And now Longport recently, we just enacted an ordinance, I helped write it, and they have a certain amount of time, situations where they can use a generator, but generally, they want them to have the hookup from the electric company, so they're not running that generator for, Christ, days and
Scott,
time,
There's
weeks on time.
50% of the guys out there now are have the temporary poles up, they're waiting for AC Electric to hook up the electric, because a storm hit, or outages.
True, there's gotta be
it
flexibility.
backs up the cut cards from being
Right.
processed.
I'll tell you what I'll
Let's-
do, I'll
Let's
send
keep
you
this
the,
to the pool right now.
we'll stick in the pool,
I think
I'll
we're
send
good.
you a copy of it.
I
Look
think
at
we're
it.
good.
They're good.
All right.
All right.
Switch gears.
Okay. Let's talk about pools.
Last chance, guys.
Big pools, yeah. Beach
Mr.
thoroughfare
Dennis.
pool. All right, on our dredging project, we I guess Roger worked his magic, and we now have a meeting scheduled with the city of Ventnor on August 16th, 2021, to discuss Shelter Island. Is that meeting here or in Ventnor? I think it's in Ventnor.
I think it's in commission chambers.
Ventnor, yes.
Okay, so we have that meeting on the books.
Can we just talk about that? That's
Let's
coming
talk
up on the
about
16th.
Yep.
I've been back and forth with Scott. I've sent a communication to Maria. Scott sent a communication to all of the people on the committee. From my perspective, I've asked Scott, even though he's going to be on Zoom as opposed to being there, he's got a handle on it. The whole purpose of this meeting is very narrow, is to get Ventnor to agree to put their name on the permit application.
Exactly.
And so all the other discussion, it's nice to have Roger and Ed there, and I think it's important because they're going to have lots of questions, but the goal at the end of that meeting is have Scott be able to get Ventnor to agree to put their name on the permit. It doesn't cost them anything, and I've written Maria and I said, if we get a permit, you know, way down the line, we've paid everything to get the permit, we'll work out whatever the details between the two towns of how they can use it. There seems to be plenty of capacity. So we'll figure out some kind of formula, but they're way behind us in terms of needing it, but they want to preserve their right to need it. But let's just, Scott's not coming back from vacation unless he has a name on that contract.
All I want him to do is jointly apply to the Bureau of Tidelands for our initial license, which our DEP, what is it called now, Land Resources Protection Agent, they changed their name.
Yeah.
I guess there's just so much money there to change
Yeah.
their name.
Very tactical.
They're stationary and everything else. So, but we have to say what we want to do with the dredge material. And what we want to do is restore marine habitat that was degraded when they dredged out Shelter Island that Margate owns half of back in the 20s. And there's a giant 4 or 5 acre hole there. And interestingly enough, the state's about to start to put dredge material in the hole off of Chelsea Heights. So they, initially, if you remember, when we first started all this, they were dead against it. And then they started to make sense, and the Army Corps was very supportive. So now they're gonna do some dredging up in Lake City and Absecon, I understand Pleasantville, they're gonna use that hole, but we're trying to use our hole. Not her hole, but everybody's. So but I think it's gonna work out. And I tell you what, I look forward to trying to restore some of this marine habitat. I think it's a great project all the way around. You shall see.
All right, Scott, item number B.
All right, well,
All right.
I do get
Rich, why
wrapped
you
up.
red? Why's your face red?
No, so we're all good on item A, so we'll have that meeting and we'll get the signatures. Item B is the floodproofing project at this building. We're coming up on 1 year since we received bids, and we did get approval from the bidder again to extend their bid price, amazingly, an additional 30 days through August 23rd, and still no formal official word from FEMA or OEM. So the contractor continues to hang in there with his bid price as we await the additional funding. And
So what-
go ahead. I know what you're gonna ask.
What can
I-
we do about it? I mean, let's just have a 1-minute discussion. Would it be helpful if the mayor, you know,
Sent a letter?
sent him a free pass to Lucy or something? I don't know, but what does it take to get their attention?
So,
How
Joe,
can the mayor help?
write a letter. I mean,
Anything I can do, you know.
we can write a letter. I mean, Joe follows up with them before every single one of these meetings, and they apologize and say they're shorthanded and it's on the list.
So who is they that apologizes?
The New Jersey Office of Emergency Management is our direct contact, and then we go through them to FEMA. It's FEMA money.
Suppose we talk to the Atlantic County Emergency Management Coordinator, Jones, his name, right?
Vince Jones.
Vince.
Yeah.
He's probably got a pathway, a communication pathway.
My only other suggestion is, we had sent some information to Jim Rotella to see if he could help break something loose, but
That didn't work.
that didn't work. So, yeah, I mean,
Rich, I can reach out to Vince Jones and see what I can
let
find
me get you
out.
the information, Dan?
All right,
All right, just coordinate with that then. Thank you very much, Chief, because 12 months and, they're working from home and we don't have enough.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, I'll get the information to the chief, so we can reach out to the county for some help.
Why can't we proceed anyway?
Well,
Taking
you,
the risk of not getting refunded, is that what it was?
yes, so we have $86,000 in FEMA funding approved, and the project is $234,000. We're a little short.
Yes, but isn't that, if we don't do it,
We're at risk.
it's going to not allow the city to recoup the remaining funds that were previously allocated for this whole
For the big
project.
project.
Yeah, so it'll never be closed out. So again, like several weeks ago, I asked, does not this work need to be completed either way? And I was told yes. So at what point in time will you say, okay, well, we need the work done anyway? And then we have funding available, the additional, because we funded it in the ordinance.
Right.
So we're either going to be on the hook for the excess or we'll be reimbursed eventually. But to keep delaying the project, if it's something that we need, like, at what point are you gonna say, okay, either we have to do it or scrap it? But if we need it, that's what I have trouble understanding.
The risk would be is if we proceed without having the funding allocated by FEMA, are we now not eligible to receive that funding? Because we proceeded without it.
Okay, I guess
I
that's
can
a
ask that
question we have
question.
to
I
find
can ask
out.
that question,
because-
and then,
Because we were
You know, in
approved
all the
based on
prior
original
dealings with
funding.
FEMA, for all the projects with Hurricane Sandy, and this building was the biggest one, it was, repeatedly said, as long as it's within the scope, that's what they always say, as long as it's in the scope, the approved
okay.
scope, if there's an overrun at the end, most likely it would be approved unless, it deviated from
I understand your
the
point.
original plans.
So if moving forward would not impact our eligibility for that additional funding, and you have the money in the budget, we could just move forward and deal with it on a parallel track. So I'll get an answer to that question.
So, but we can't get closed out on this building, and is there
No,
any additional
because it's
funding
all
that's still
part,
coming?
I believe so, yes.
So that's important too.
I have to look because it's been a few years.
We're right in the middle of hurricane season. If we get hit and this building gets damaged again, because we waited on $86,000, it's,
We're waiting on $150,000.
well, whatever it is.
Here's what I would like to see happen.
I'm
The
gonna
chief said he's gonna
Call
get
Vince
on it.
Jones, yep.
After he does that, would you and Lisa and Ed confer and recommend a course of action?
Okay.
I mean, most of it's very simple. The biggest two projects in this whole thing were putting the sump pumps, one in that front closet and one in the back garage area. The other is just the panels in front of the doors and the posts that are getting put in, which is simple. So the two big elements of that project, and that's where the big change came, was putting those sump pumps in. Because prior to, with the 86,000, we weren't putting those pumps in, and we weren't putting the floor drains in.
Right.
It was just, that's why it was 86,000, just to put the barriers
So
in.
we have to do that now, right?
They
Yes.
changed their course of action after the last time we met with them.
They meaning FEMA.
FEMA, that's correct.
So if they change, I can't see
They
them
changed it,
tonight.
directives to do it.
And amazingly, we're talking about, we're putting in that floor drain up in this front corner for this room, that there was probably about this much water in this room.
Okay. I think we
But
have a
that's what
plan.
it is.
We'll report back on the 9th.
Yep.
But aren't we at a different elevation now?
No.
No?
We're the same elevation, it's just backfill.
There's no void underneath.
It's all solid.
Fred,
remember
you-
all those days, Mayor, you were
You,
here?
you can't fix that?
I can fix it.
All right.
All right.
Ed,
Couple
I-
tracks, right?
Item C is our EPA compliance. We've completed the first part, which was the risk resiliency assessment, and the emergency response plan is, I believe, completed and needs to be submitted within 6 months of the first part. I know JJ's been talking to Public Works about making sure that that happens. Don't know if it's happened yet, but I know that JJ has been dealing with Jim on that.
Get in touch with JJ, I'm not in on that. You know what this is all about, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, we have time, it's 6 months, but yeah, we might as well get it done. All right, item D, we're waiting to hear on our FEMA grant application status. I know they have been announcing some allocations of funds. Longport just got 1.2 million for a flood mitigation project, so hopefully we hear back from FEMA on the Adams Avenue Stormwater Pump Station project. Minnie Creek, we discussed the report at the last meeting. We're putting together a budgetary cost estimate for the recommended course of action. We will then have that for consideration either as part of a grant application or perhaps for some additional steps as part of the budget. So we'll have that ready. Item F is the next phase of curb and gutter. This job is almost ready to go out to bid. We'll be advertising on the 19th of August, and I don't have the bid opening date listed on here, but obviously it'll be some point in September. So we'll be ready to go in the fall with construction. Item G is the Ventnor Avenue Bridle Path, which is in design this year. That was a project we had slotted for construction in next year's budget, so the design is moving forward on that. Turning the page to item H is the next phase of Amherst Avenue from Douglas to Gladstone. We have our base plans done, designs in progress, and we are reaching out to the school to schedule a meeting to discuss construction logistics. This project will impact the school area, so we just want to make sure we're all on the same page on how that is logistically going to be accomplished, given that this project is currently scheduled for fall construction, when school would be in session. So I do believe there were some emails that were going around on that to schedule that meeting. Item I is the municipal building interior renovation project. The architect has some revised drawings that I handed to Fred. It's canceled, got it. So that's moving ahead in the design phase, and we'll take a look at the revised drawings, and at this point, the next step will be, we'll have some cost estimates for where we're at, and some design decisions are being made, and then we will decide based on where we're at in our cost estimate, which direction to go in as far as different design selections. But that project is on schedule for bidding sometime, I believe in September was the bid, or in the fall. Item J, miscellaneous engineering, the outfall bolt protrusion, I don't have any update. Under construction projects, no updates on our maintenance bonds, next one's due in November. Atlantic Avenue, I'll call it phase 1 and phase 2. So we did make progress on wrapping these projects up. All of the punch list work is complete, except for the striping restoration that was disturbed when they came in and did those patches. They actually showed up 2 days ago to do the striping, and our inspector stopped them because they were using the wrong paint. So, close but no cigar. Yeah, all right. All right. So they are trying to get it scheduled to use they gotta get zone striping out there, and they're having a hard time getting them back out to the site for a little job like that. So they try to do it themselves, but they were, it's gotta be done properly. So that's the only thing left to close these 2 jobs out. We have that additional curb work done. So all we're waiting on is this little bit of striping that needs to be done. Item N is the Amherst Avenue bulkhead, which will be closed out once the electrical work is complete, which is tied into the Promenade project. Item O is Amherst Avenue Phase 1. There's no major update on this. We are still in a holding pattern as far as the road construction, with final paving to be completed in the fall. I do know that Mathis Construction was out at the site since the last meeting. We pointed out some issues with with the sidewalk out there and making sure that they're maintaining a safe and passable site. So they were out there to take a look at some of those items, and we're going to address any deficiencies that were in place, and we did have someone from our office meet with them out there. I don't have any update on the home repair front. Scott, I don't know if you've gotten any updates or correspondence?
And there were some offers from Travelers that the homeowners' attorneys have countered, and that's where it stands right now.
Okay.
I did get an engineering report from about you.
Did you?
Yeah, currently.
Yeah. Please, okay. Which, was that for which home?
You're at Windor, coming up.
Okay,
I sent a copy to Rich. I forgot.
okay. Item P is the road diet. So the traffic signal timing was completed. I think it was completed as of the last meeting. And we did get a quote from the vendor to install the synchronization equipment so that if, when we put these back on flash and then we turn them back on, they'll be synced up again. I don't know, has that been sent over yet to you guys? Have you seen it? Okay. I'll make sure it gets over to you guys.
They are working well, though.
Oh,
You can
yeah.
get from one side of the town to the other without
It's working
stopping.
better than.
Than I ever figured,
Yeah.
yep.
Yep,
And everybody's crossing safely, which is the best part.
yep. So still positive reviews on that project, and we're, at this point, just waiting on, again, a little bit of striping that needs to be completed. And I think Zone was the striping company on that project as well, so that'll probably all get done when they come in to do Atlantic Avenue as part of the road job. Item Q is the promenade. So the latest update here is, unless I've missed some newer update, they are scheduled to receive the remaining decking in North Carolina tomorrow. And then it would be a 10-day trip to Margate from when it arrives, which would put them on for receiving material in Margate on August 16th. The same day we're meeting in Ventnor about Shelter Island. Big day.
I just want to make sure that it's going to Charleston, South Carolina.
Oh, boy.
I was thinking the same thing.
Oh, man.
Isn't that a one-day travel?
Oh, boy.
Usually Charleston's one day.
Not 10.
They are, right.
Snails.
They have to unpack it. They actually have to unload it and then reload it.
And then
Yep,
repallets.
yep. And I'll give Debbie a geography lesson as well. So and we did receive a request for a time extension from the contractor through September 17th. And I think he's got a little bit of float built in there, given the ongoing uncertainty with the lumber.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
I'm so sorry. But how is that going to impact, or not Beach Stock, the Fun Fest?
It's not,
Supposed to be done, right?
it's not.
I believe I spoke with
Should be done.
the MBA today. They're more concerned about greater pandemic issues than the promenade being completed at this point. So I think it should be all ready to go by that time at the end of
And,
September.
and even if it's not, if the boards don't come in, we're gonna cordon off that section. They'll have the street parking areas for their vendors. And then I have to make a call to Leeds and Gormley to see if we could use their frontage in front of their bulkhead for food vendors also.
And with all that said, there's a big portion of the promenade that has been opened.
Yes.
So, the public is getting to enjoy at least a portion of the promenade this summer. So, as long as we stick to this schedule here, we're getting there. We're almost at the end. Item R is the Benson Avenue tank. That project's just in closeout. That was the interior painting project. Item S is the streetscape project out in front of this building, which I think there's a resolution on today to accept the project, so that project is closed out. Item T is the Fire Station 2 addition. The demolition and foundation work is complete. The framing is underway. I was just looking at some photographs from Chief Adams. Looks like the first floor is framed up.
And actually, when I was out there this afternoon, they do have the plywood on the second floor joist, so it's moving along.
So that's good. So that project's moving along. Yep. Item U is our emergency water main replacement, which is completely complete and will be removed from this report. So that job is done. And item V is the redevelopment of Well 5, which we had our pre-construction meeting on the 21st of July, and we are scheduled to start work in October. And that is the end of my report.
Thank you, Ed.
Very good.
Any questions for Ed before we move on? Department head reports, we have 20 minutes. We can probably go around the table in that, right? Lisa, why don't you start today?
Everything is good in finance. The only comment I want to make is I briefly spoke to Rich prior to this meeting. about the American Recovery Funds that we have. So if there's been any further discussion or possible projects that's been narrowed down to, please let me know. I know I have to submit the first status report by the end of the month, so it's probably going to be one of the questions. I haven't reviewed it yet, but, you know, just keep me posted as to what direction you'd like to go.
I would suggest that we just report that we've had a discussion here, and that you, if you have input on uses, get them to Lisa directly. We'll make some internal recommendations to the commissioners, but in general, we are limited to how there's a fairly broad range, but we're still limited on how the funds can be used. They're not just discretionary funds. And my overall suggestion is that we use the funds for a project that would benefit the most taxpayers and residents of this community that we can. So I'm asking Frank and Ed to continue to look at our capital plan as it relates to water and sewer in particular, because it appears that those projects are eligible projects, and that we pick a project that is one that doesn't just benefit one street, but maybe a very large part of the town as it relates to the water system or sewer system. And that way, when we go public, which we're doing now, but as we continue to go public and have them realize that they're hearing about all these funds coming to the municipalities, that they are seeing that all of us will get some relief and benefit. And obviously, if we can use these funds, it'll help keep our costs down in the utilities. So that's one major area that I think we should focus on.
Okay. Lisa, you have anything else?
That's everything. Thank you.
Chief?
I will be brief. Just wanted to remind everybody, especially the public, that next Tuesday, August 11th, the police department will be having our annual Law Day. We'll do bike registration, car seat installs. It's always a good event. We've done it in conjunction with the library programs for many years. We invite the public to come out, meet members of the police department, see displays. We have a balloon twister this year. We have music, so it's always a good event, and I hope to see a great turnout from the community. One finishing item is, over the last few meetings, we spoke about beach chairs on the split rail fences on the beach. Over the course of, since last meeting, we did have printed, and I have a sample if anyone would like to see them, labels that were placed on all the beach chairs on the beach. They have been, I spoke with Andrew Miles. He had some of his staff start placing those stickers on the beach chairs, and there was a little mix-up here and there, but we got it sorted out. So hopefully we move forward with that, and we can get some of those chairs removed and make it safer for everybody getting on and off the beach.
Good job. Thank you, Matt. Rich, you have anything else?
Unfortunately, I do, Mayor. We still have an ordinance that we talked about, and I want to make sure the commissioners still want to do, is revise the ordinance on exterminations during demolitions. It's a 1989 ordinance that seems like it should be updated. I think it's all those questions are under control, but I still think we should update the ordinance. And if we should, then we should make sure that the solicitor will do it. If you don't want to do it, it's up to you, but I'd like to see you do it.
Okay. I can get with Scott.
Yeah, it's simple, just update it, that's all. Nothing dramatic about it, but just update it. They use canisters now, they don't spread, you know.
Yeah.
So, just those simple things.
Yeah, we looked into it pretty good too. I mean, when they demolish a home, they use the enclosed box.
Black box, yeah.
That's where the roads, it's pretty tough for a dog.
They actually got to put a sticker on it. The DEP requires a sticker and all that, so it's all
So the point-
registered.
And I think the point is, you know, we had somebody's dog passed, perhaps from poison.
All right.
It probably wasn't from that.
Second thing, Mayor, so you want to continue on that, that's good. decision. Library construction. I had sent an email out. I've met with the head of the library board as well as their director. We're technically required to, we're responsible for the building and the property. They're responsible for the day-to-day operations. But I've conceptually worked out something in which we would fund a project to redo the roof and heating and air conditioning in that system over the next number of months. And we would enter into a contract with the library where we would in turn lease the library, the park that we own for like $1 to be, the purpose meaning for them to maintain it. We would still own it, it's a Green Acres property. They do some maintenance on it now, but they would have total responsibility for it, including the structures that are on there. And they would put some money in, and they would be required to do so to update the two entrance structures on either side of that park. And then for them to maintain it, and probably to build a gazebo in there so that they could have some small projects, small programs in that park. Still a public park, but it's attached to their building, and for all intent and purposes, it's the library park. But they would then assume those responsibilities, those costs, and the maintenance, and oversee it, the planning, the landscaping, and all of that stuff. We wouldn't have to do anything, other than we still own the property. In addition to that, there are some preliminary talks about moving the bocce courts that are next to the senior center to another park location at the Rim Park, Jerome Avenue, and for the library to build a larger structure, outdoor structure, but not a gazebo, but a shelter, if you will, right where the bocce courts are. And they, together with our recreation department, would partner for programming there, including some musical programming where people could sit on the beach and we could have musical programming under that structure. So this is all in the conceptual stage, but it's kind of a give and take with respect to us not having as many operational responsibilities, and we would end up funding the capital. So the next few months we'll be working on that, but I'd like to have some feedback from others internally about your ideas and how that could work. Housekeeping, there was something from Lisa to Scott a while ago, and I don't think it ever got resolved, and I'm going away, and I just want to try to get this stuff going. There was a parking lot that was supposed to change hands, Marshall and Quincy Ventures and all that. I don't know much about it, but something didn't happen, and I think we passed resolutions that said it was going to happen, and I think we need to clean up legally.
They ultimately did go to settlement, but they postponed settlement for many months. And then it was a new entity. We sent them a letter saying, who is the new entity? For a while there, the deed was not of record to even say what the name of the entity is. So I know that someone bought it. We had consented by resolution to the assignment of that parking lot lease. And really, technically, what you're referring to is there should be something new that says who is the new owner that has taken over that lease arrangement with us.
We need it for the public record, and we also need it because we bill them, and we need to know who to bill and when to bill it, and make sure that we're all.
Well, we have sent them letters, but I don't think, have they responded? Not to me. Not to you?
No, and you know, it's been a while, so I assumed, which probably I shouldn't have, that it was.
Well, we got paid, I know that, but I'll see what we have public record-wise
Let's clean up the
as to
record.
who
We
is
can
this
get that
new
resolved
entity.
in the next 45 days.
Right, and there is a new entity title.
I don't like to have all these things undone. The mayor gets after me every Tuesday. The last thing I have, just a reminder to the commissioners and to public, that we still have a lot of those front yard fence issues. We had preliminary discussions here. We're not gonna have another discussion today, but, in the fall, early in the fall, we have a new inspector. We're going to have to enforce the ordinances that we pass, and we'll do it as gently and as kindly as we can. But it's gonna happen in the next 60 days. So if you have any further discussion at that time, please talk to Roger, talk to the planning board, talk to each other, through me. Talk publicly.
Anything else, Rich?
Sorry, Mayor, that's it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Wish I had more.
Jim?
I'd like to publicly thank Frank and Fred and Frank's team for helping us get our office together. They got rid of the carpet and, well, he expedited it. Come on, Fred, expect it. But we got the 3 ladies very happy up there, which is a godsend. Thank you very much for that. You guys are tremendous. But I'd like to thank Frank for helping getting the sites ready for the emergency alert poles. They'll be installed next week, and we'll have them up and running probably by the end of the week. That's all I have to report.
Thank you, Jim. Fred, do you have anything to discuss today?
Mayor, I have one complaint.
John, Fred will start.
I have a complaint. Too bad. Keep it to yourself. I have
You're the only
stickers,
one that
I have
complains.
stickers all over my beach chairs. That's what somehow. No, you don't. It's a ring tag, so they don't stick to your beach chair. Are you learning from Scott about complaining?
Yes.
You're done, Fred. Frank?
The Monroe Avenue parking lot, we went there the next day, the gates were open. They've been open every day ever since, but we still check it even on the weekends. Our beaches, they're in very good shape this year, and they've been really crowded. But, you know, we've been dealing with the trash and what have you. And we're looking to move forward with the new Public Works building. We're anticipating, you know, it'll happen soon, and we will be very, we will be very happy to have that. That's there you go. Thank you very much. That's all I got.
That's it, thanks. Scott, do you have anything to, Roger?
Yes, the Public Works building, that'll be very nice to have.
Yes.
I suggest that we move forward to Phase 1 and Phase 2 environmental to check the site where the building was. Planning board, we're busy as ever. We have 8 or 9 cases on for September. September's booked, August is booked. Moving into October now. Gonna do some more housekeeping ordinance changes this fall to make some corrections. The bike racks are almost done throughout the city, the one with the county, through the DOT, through the Fed. So hopefully that'll move on and be completed within the next few weeks.
Maybe you can get some pictures to Kelly and get them on.
Yes, she has some. I think the ones with Lucy the elephant really came out better than I thought they would. They're actually stamped, Lucy's stamped into the metal.
So did the surf shops, turned out nice.
Oh, yeah.
And the ball field.
That was pretty sharp looking. Other than that, I think that's it.
He's ready.
Dan?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. One is, I just want to let the residents know and be aware, when the fire department is dispatched to a response or a call, even though they call their alarm company back and they tell them the proper passcode, once we are dispatched, we have an obligation to investigate and show up to assure that there's no problem at the incident scene. So just if somehow we can get that word out to the residents, they seem to be a little perturbed at times when we still show up. Usually we'll reduce our response down to 1 apparatus just to check. But we have gone to situations where they've called and said everything was fine, and they've actually had a fire or a situation, and whether or not they were trying to cover it up is another thing. So that's one. Two, just to bring, Commissioner Amadeo, Mayor Becker, and Mr. Deeney up to date. We've been dealing with an ongoing EMS mutual aid issue with our mainland communities. And the problem lies with, I'm not going to speak for them, but there is not enough EMS staffing and available to handle what they need to. We're dealing with it. It's something I'm working with Longport, Ocean City, and even Upper Township, and we've met several times, but I'll keep you up to date. I'll give you a follow-up report. But we've actually changed some of our policies internally with the police department for dispatch. And to make it clear, we are not going to be going mutual aid offshore to a mainland community if our primary ambulance is not available. We have an obligation to the residents and visitors and taxpayers of the city of Margate to provide a service first and foremost, and that's what we're going to do. So if our primary ambulance is available, we'll provide that care and service. But if it's not, they've been made aware, and I've actually had conversations with Mayor Maddock of Linwood several times as well. But I'll keep you up to date as we move forward. I'll let you, Commissioner, you'll talk about
Yep.
tomorrow night?
Yep.
Okay. And the beach patrol has been doing a great job this summer. Like Frank said, the beaches have been packed and busy, and they've had a number of people in the water in some conditions, and they're doing an excellent job. So hats off to Chief Smallwood and the crew from the beach patrol. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. John, you have anything?
Just to follow up on what Dan had mentioned, tomorrow night at 6:30 on the beach at Decatur. Well, it'll span from Cedar Grove to probably Madison. Will be the 75th anniversary of the Margate Memorials Competition, which is rowing, swimming, and what's the third event, Dan?
Doubles?
Singles, yes, so that's 3 events. So all the public's welcome. They were postponed last year, as all lifeguard races were due to the pandemic. So hopefully we have a good turnout and people get to enjoy the competition. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. I have nothing today. Is there a motion to adjourn this meeting?
So moved.
Second?
Mayor Becker?
Yes.
Commissioner Amadeo?
Yes.
Commissioner Blumberg?
We will take a short break and we will begin our public meeting.